Welcome to Perfect-ish, where it's not about having perfect time management, but about perfecting your relationship with time. I'm your host, Callie Brigham, and every week we'll talk all things time and how to maximize it without burnout or guilt. Whether we're chatting with an expert or I'm sharing my 20 years of time management experience, you'll learn simple strategies to make every moment count. Here, it's all about getting close to perfect-ish. So let's synchronize our watches and dive in. Hi, friend. Cue the confetti cannons and the pom-poms. Yes, I do have a pom-pom in my desk drawer because doesn't everybody? Well, we've made it. Episode 100. Holy cow. A century of episodes, so to speak. What better way to celebrate this milestone than by giving you something? I have a gift for you for episode 100, and I believe it's something we all desperately need. It is permission. This is the permission episode. That's right. My friend, today's episode isn't about doing more. It's about giving you a green light to do what actually works for you, and that is permission. And why? Why are we doing this today? Why is this episode about permission granted? Well, first of all, spiritually speaking, the number 100 represents completion. Not that we're ending the show, not completion like that, but a full circle moment, kind of like one lap of the track that we're on. But we're just getting started, right? But that one lap, that full circle, is a culmination of lessons learned, habits formed, and cycles that maybe we're supposed to keep going or maybe we're supposed to shift. Kind of a cool thought that if someone listening, maybe it's you, that has listened to all 100 episodes. So definitely if that's you, I want to know. I want you to post something on social. I want you to send me a DM. I mean, you need a shout out. If you have listened to all 100 episodes, Mom, that's you. Anyways, one of the things that I thought of is if someone took just one tip, just one little tiny nugget from each of those episodes, that would be 100 little tweaks or activities or mind shifts or perspective shifts. How neat is that? Okay, but here's the twist on this whole 100 theme. Completion doesn't mean perfection. Remember, that's where the ish always comes in. It means you're ready for what's next, lap 2. And sometimes that next step, that next lap, that next race, it requires permission to release what's no longer serving you. So I started to think, what ways could I give you, could I give me permission as we launch into the next 100? So here's the first one. Permission to embrace Plan B. I've been talking a lot about Plan B in my stories, maybe because I've been using some Plan Bs. Anybody? I had one of my clients say, I'm using the whole alphabet. I said, okay, let's work on that. But life is messy. Life happens. And sometimes Plan A is just not going to happen. And maybe you have written it out. Maybe you have projected it out. But maybe real life said, hold my beer, right? Real life was like, yeah, that is not going to go according to plan A today. And it is okay. And it is okay to pivot and it's okay to swap a hustle, not just for grace, but for the smarts that we may want to give ourselves some emotional insurance. That's what I believe plan B is. It's options. And I don't know about you, but I like options. It's also like I call it insurance, like I just said, because what that means is if something doesn't go this way, I have a backup plan. I have a safety net. I'm not going to lose it all, as in lose my mind or lose my momentum or lose a relationship or lose a sale. It's okay because I'm just going to shift into plan B. So when I work with my clients, I have them do this all the time. And I do this with myself too. I'll give you a couple of examples. So, if you follow me at all, then you know my morning walk is sacred. The second that the kids and my husband leave for work, I lace up my shoes and I head out the door. And on my walk, one of the reasons I love it is I have so much that I accomplish in the walk, and I work while I walk, I connect with people while I walk, and then I pray while I walk. And we're actually going to have a whole episode on that, taking time, making time for prayer. Some of the ways I do it, some of the ways my friends do it. So stay tuned. Hopefully, that is up your alley or you want it to be. Well, here's the deal. I live in Northwest Florida. Most of the time, that works out great. Most of the time, plan A, nailed it. However, it does rain in Northwest Florida. And I mean, it comes down. Now, the way that it rains here is it usually is not all day. It's usually in the summer or an afternoon shower. So I can count on it sometimes to not throw off the whole day. But if I do wake up, and granted, I should probably check the weather the day before, that's on me. But if I do wake up and it's raining, then what I do is I just shift my day. I just move that time block to later in the afternoon. So it's not like I have to think about it. It's not like I have to get frustrated, although I do a little bit because I really like it in the morning. But I just shift and I move to plan B seamlessly as if it were plan A. I also do things like if this appointment goes long, then, and I can shift things around. If I change my mind about dinner, anybody else? Okay, maybe you have mapped out your meal plan for the week, but frankly, when it comes to Thursday, late afternoon, you just don't feel like getting in the kitchen that much. Well, maybe plan B is you've got some freezer meals that you just pop in, or you know what? It is okay for 3 boxes of Annie's mac and cheese. Just me, just my house. That plan B, if you already have them, it really still feels like a plan A moment. Does that make sense? You could have plan Bs if you get off track on vacation. You could have plan Bs such as I always have a snack of some sort in my car. I always fill up my big water. Here it is right here. Okay. My big water tumbler. I always have that filled up with water when I get in my car, and there's always a snack in there because you just never know what's going to happen. And sometimes I'm going to need to eat something. Sometimes I'm going to need to hydrate. Sometimes I'm going to be in the car longer. Sometimes traffic's going to happen. Sometimes I'm going to need to divert. Sometimes a kid's going to need something. Sometimes I'm going to realize that the while I'm there concept that I hadn't already planned out is going to happen. And I can still be okay not running into a convenience store, not starving myself, not having to go home because I've got a plan B in place. It's just because you never know. But I want to give you permission to go ahead and embrace that as just as an important part as having a perfect weekly plan. The deal is failure is a teacher. So I do want you to pay attention. I will say this about a plan B. If you're always needing plan B, that could be a problem. That could send off a few warning lights. So I do want to address that if everything in your schedule always has to end up being plan B and it never works out the first way, we might want to go back to the basics. We might want to take a look at your original weekly plan and say, is this way too ambitious? Am I overextending myself? Or am I thinking that much more grandiose ideas than are what can actually happen? Am I projecting too much on other people as well? Or maybe does my weekly plan just not reflect the kind of person I want to be? I would love to be this way, but I'm just simply not. Well, in that case, we might need to reshuffle the whole thing, and we'll get to some of that in just a minute. So I do want you to pay attention. If plan B always has to shift into first place, then we do want to maybe make some tweaks with the original. But here we go today. Permission granted. Plan Bs are fantastic. Just make sure that you have a few of them in your arsenal. All right, next. Okay, all God's people said amen to this one. And by all God's people, I say all the busy women, especially the busy mamas, especially the busy mamas of littles. Permission to leave the dishes in the sink. Now, I'm referring to actual dishes in the sink, but this could also mean a pile of laundry on the chair in your bedroom. This could also mean the project that you were going to start and now your office looks like a disaster. It could mean that. It could mean a variety of things. You probably know what it is, what your dishes in the sink moment is. But the deal is, as we spent a lot of time recently on busy versus productive, I want you to also recognize productivity doesn't mean constant movement. It means prioritizing what actually matters. Are you ready? Right now. And spoiler alert, sometimes right now is rest. Sometimes right now is playing a round of Candyland with your littles. Sometimes right now is sitting with a teen and doing something that they like. Sometimes right now is watching that show with your spouse, even though it's not really your thing, and you have a lot to do. You see, sometimes you just need permission to leave the thing. Now, I will say this is probably the hardest one of all these things. This is the hardest one for me. I'm an Enneagram 3. I tend to be an achiever. I tend to be in motion. I like to accomplish things. But sometimes it's about making a conscious decision that you're going to be in the moment. Sometimes it's asking yourself, will this matter later? Which one's going to matter most later? Filling up the love tank of a relationship that I have, or making sure that my kitchen sink is spotless. Now, I know that there are varying degrees to this too. And I know that we do have women that do struggle with things like OCD, right? And that control. And some of that may actually be best in talking to a professional about it. So I don't want to make light of this, but I do want to say in general, sometimes it is okay to let it sit there till tomorrow. I'm talking to myself. Callie, it is okay. Now, if that still feels a little bit impossible or it's just not realistic in that situation, maybe you just, again, shift things around. Maybe you say, okay, instead of doing the dishes now, I'm going to do it. And what that does is that releases you emotionally in the moment and it just puts it in another part of your schedule. Or maybe you could make it into a game or make it fun. And maybe you could say to that person, you know what? I really feel like I have this task hanging over my head. Would you be willing to knock it out with me really quickly? And then we can. So that's also a bit of a plan B, but at the end of the day, I want you to know that it is okay if something matters more right now than what was on your schedule. An important quality of this too is an expectation conversation. We had an episode way back in one of the beginning episodes. You can search for that with Chatney, my friend. And the expectation conversation, I think, is really going to free you up to know that sometimes people in your life that you love are going to feel like they need more of you in a certain area. And when they do, I think that will really give you permission that it's okay to leave something for right now. Next, permission to break the habit loop. Just because, and I'm a big fan of habits, Atomic Habits, Call Me James Clear, one of my all-time favorite books, like top, I don't know, 3-ish. But just because you started a habit, and a good habit at it, let me just say that as well, or a decent habit or a good-ish habit, it doesn't mean that it needs to be forever. Sometimes you need permission to break up with a habit, to switch it up, to set your sights on something that might serve you better. For example, for me, I've actually been shaking up my morning and evening routines. There was nothing wrong with them. But I was also starting to feel like there was a few things that were shifting in me that I was starting to prioritize or that I wanted to model or just a season of my life. And I will be sharing more about this, by the way. Let me kind of work through it and then I'll share with you what that looked like. But I think for me, this was important to say just because it wasn't a bad habit didn't necessarily mean it was my best for right now. And I was able to say, even though my body naturally, excuse me, feels like it knows what to do, and this is what I want to do today because my body tends to stay in motion, it is okay to switch it up. As a matter of fact, it's kind of fun. There has been this trend going on Instagram where you post about sitting down with your younger self. And of course, the younger self has not had the life experience. They've not gone through the ups and the downs and the this and the that. And so what you're doing is you're sitting with your younger self almost with a charm, sitting there thinking you're going to be all right. You've been doing the best you can, but let me tell you, some things are going to change. So you may need some permission today to break a habit loop. And that leads me to the next one. Permission to shake up your schedule. Okay, so not just a habit, but permission to shake up the whole schedule, or maybe part of a schedule, or a half a day, or a weekend. Time management is not about being rigid, it's about being flexible. It's just that you are the one to make those decisions, right? We talk about it's not a box, it's a trellis. So give yourself freedom to restructure your day in a way that works for you. So again, similar concept to the habit loop. What works best for you? And I think about for me, different seasons with my kids and with my work. My schedule needed to shift. When I lived in Memphis and we did not have kids yet, Josh and I, our schedule was because we're naturally more night people. So we would stay up at night. And as long as I was in my office by 9-ish or so, it was fine. It was no big deal. I also held appointments at my house every single Thursday night and every single Saturday morning. That was just my routine. That's what worked for us, etc. Well, then we have a baby. Of course, everything starts to shift, but we moved down to Florida and we live on the beach. And guess what I started to realize? No one was holding appointments with me at my house on a Saturday morning because they either didn't want to fight traffic to get out to the beach on a beautiful Saturday, or they were going to the beach on a beautiful Saturday. And I needed to say this was no longer working for us in this season. But you know what was so great about it? I decided to shift my schedule because how can I, right? How could I still make this work? How could I still have a successful business without doing what I had always done for a decade up until that point? And I realized that I could just move things around and it really worked for us. And what was so beautiful, the end result was, little did I know, my younger self, that both of my kids, especially my son, would move into this incredible world of travel sports and that we were going to eventually be gone or at games most every weekend during spring and fall soccer. And now with volleyball with my daughter. Guess what? If I had not shaken up my schedule then, that would have been a wild wake up call when the time came. So the deal is think about your schedule right now and if it's working for you right now, not for anybody else, not what the quote unquote experts say, but for you. And you have the permission to say, how can I? How could I still get the same results in my business if I shifted my schedule? How could I still be there for my kids at a certain time of day or have dinner together? Or what would that look like for me? When would I need to wake up? When would I want to go to bed? You can shake it up. All right, here's the last one. Permission to start fresh anytime. You don't need a Monday. You don't need a new month or even a shiny new year. You just need this moment to decide, I'm ready for something different. There's a difference between one day or day one. I love a decided person. You know, you're not a tree. You can move. So permission to start fresh anytime, which could be today. So imagine running that lap. We've run it together, 100 episodes worth. And now as we cross into lap 2, what is that going to look like for you? It could look radically different. It could look pretty much the same with a couple little shifts and adjustments and nuances to your schedule, but it's up to you. My mom used to say that the 5 most important words that anybody could say were, I have made a decision, right? And that is totally accurate. But then the next most important words are, I have taken action. So it's not just enough to decide. I want you to take action. So here is your call to action. Are you ready to give yourself permission that maybe you didn't even realize that you needed? Well, Granted. So let's take this to the next level. I want you to think, what permission slip did I need today? Did I need permission to go ahead and be cool with plan Bs? And maybe even write a bunch out and prepare for them. It's all good. Do I need permission to leave some dishes in the sink? Do I need permission to break a habit loop and just change it? Do I need permission to shake up my schedule? And do I need permission to start fresh anytime, which is today? Now, I just have graduated a client, which is very rare because mostly we want to stay working together forever. But sometimes they're good. They've been through all of the different processes and they're ready for the next step. So if you are looking for a time management coach, I want you to book a free call with me to see if this has just been what's missing from your productivity puzzle. And then we can work more one-on-one. Second, I want you to prep for an upcoming time management course. I want you to start thinking, do I want to be on a wait list to snag a spot for a time management course? It is in process. It is coming. This is going to be major breakthroughs, and I'm so excited. So stay tuned to that. All right, friends, on this 100th episode, I just want to remind you that your beautifully imperfect life doesn't need another rigid schedule. What it would love and flourish in is space, grace, and a whole lot of permission. So here's to the next 100 episodes of embracing progress over perfection, the perfect-ish way. God bless. Thanks for tuning in to the Perfect-ish Time Management Podcast. Let's keep the fun going. Follow me on social and join our Facebook community. And if you're ready for some one-on-one time management coaching to reach the top of your game without burnout or guilt, I'd love to chat. Book a free interest call using the link in the show notes or send me a DM. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a 5-star review and share it with a friend who's ready to master their time too. Remember, we're in this together, making real progress towards becoming perfect-ish.